We've got the last exhibition game of the season on tap for UConn, and it's against a great opponent in Michigan State. So joining me today, we've got Graham Couch. He covers the team. So Graham, thanks so much for hopping on.
No, thanks for having me.
I think one thing that really excites me about this matchup, you normally don't get these games, in front of a crowd, before the season starts. This year's the first, really, this first, second year they've really been doing this. You excited to see a big time matchup here in the preseason?
Yeah, it is. They did. Michigan State had one a couple years ago where they had Tennessee play, and it was a crowd, but that was like a special exemption they did for the like Maui fire relief,
Yeah.
and so that was the way they were able to get a crowd. Now you can just do it, and it is kind of it's kind of weird that the game doesn't technically count, but you do get a good feel for and I think that's important. Like Michigan State just played Bowling Green last week, and you learn some things, but it's different when you go up against the UConn.
Yeah, I want to start, and I'm going to look down here in my notes because I really like the quote that Tom Izzo said after that game against Bowling Green the other day, saying that Dan Hurley was probably sitting back watching this game and is salivating. What about the game against Bowling Green does Tom Izzo think has Dan Hurley salivating?
Well, the Michigan State's defensive effort wasn't where they will probably be or where they need to be or where they were last year, and their rebounding wasn't great. And they have a lot of new parts, and he put a whole new lineup on the floor together, guys who were all new to the program, either transfers or freshmen, and it wouldn't look to the standard you probably need to compete, near the top of the Big Ten or in the NCAA tournament. And so that's something that they're going to have to figure out. That's not a lineup that you'd see in a regular season game, though. So what I don't know is how much of it was based on sort of the situation, and then some of it is something this MSU team's going to have to figure out do they have the right people to guard people at the perimeter? Do they have the right rim protectors and all that stuff? And they lost some key guys who did that stuff well.
Yeah. So as you think about this season and just to step back from that exhibition, I just want to start with that quote because it got me thinking. What are the expectations for this year's Michigan State team? Obviously, year in, year out, national championship, high expectations for a team like Michigan State. But realistically, what are kind of the thoughts heading into the season?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think a lot of people don't know. There's a lot of intrigue around it. There's a lot of hope. The expectations. I think last year was reinvigorating. The program had been the team had been around that 7 or 8 seed in the NCAA tournament for a couple of years, and people wondered if Izzo had lost his fastball, and then they won the Big Ten by 3 games, and they had a really good season last year. But you lose Jace Richardson, who was kind of a freshman that came out of nowhere to the NBA draft, first round pick, and they lose Jaden Akins, another really good guard, and so there are questions like who's the go-to player, right? Who makes things? There are 3 players who everybody's counting on to take a significant step, and Coen Carr and Jeremy Fears and Jackson Kohler, but like until they do it, it's hard to know. I think this team will be a tournament team for sure. I think there's the potential if unknown parts and certain things come together of being a team that competes and contends again. But it's really difficult to know because you are counting on some unknowns.
Yeah, and I know the Big Ten tough as ever. I know this team picked six in the preseason. It seemed like Tom Izzo took a little bit of offense to that.
Well, I mean, they did win it by 3 games, and they got a lot of guys coming. One of the things that's clearly happened in the sort of the modern, the modern times is if you have a great transfer class, your preseason ranking and your picks is high. Like if
Yeah.
Michigan State brought in its top 3 players through the transfer portal rather than just retaining them, I think they'd be higher ranked. And
Hmm.
so that's sort of what he's getting at. It's sort of the idea that people look at things from sort of that distorted angle. The other side of that, though, is the Big Ten is 18 teams deep. There are 12 or 13 teams to me that are intriguing and have a chance to be probably NCAA tournament teams. Not all of them will, obviously, but being picked sixth when you lose, your top couple scorers, and I don't see how that's really that much of a front given who else is in the league.
I know last year, looking at this Michigan State team 3-point shooting, not at the highest or the levels I'm sure they'd like it to be. How does that part of the game look heading into this season?
You know, I mean, they were about 8 for 25 in the preseason game, the first preseason game. Now they were uh, better than that for a while in that game. I think they'll have enough shooting. That's been an issue to some degree the last couple of years. And when I look, the question is, can you always have at least a couple shooters of a certain caliber on the floor together to create the spacing you need? They've got a chance to be there. I think Jeremy Fears Jr., the point guard, is better in that area. He looked like it in the opener, went 2 for 4 for three. But it's really what's around him. And I think both their shooting guards are going to be good 3-point shooters, but they'll only one or the other will likely be on the floor most of the time. And then they've got two bigs who are stretch guys, and Jackson Kohler and Jesse McCullough. And then they've got some other guys like Coen Carr supposed to be able to hit him. He was hitting them all summer. We'll see what other guys look like. But in terms of shooters you can count on, I think they'll have enough. I don't know whether it'll be a strength.
Yeah, let's dive through this roster just a little bit in terms of what fans can expect to see. If there's a guy you're circling on this roster that you really want to check out tomorrow and see, is it Coen Carr? Is that the guy you're going for first and
Well, if
foremost?
you're a visiting fan, he's the guy who's worth the price of admission. I mean, he's just an above the rim athlete. I mean, just excuse me, a elite dunker in a lot of ways. Like, and I don't mean just like even in MSU basketball lore, they've had great dunkers, the Brandon Dawsons, the Shannon Browns, but they're not in his sphere. He's up there with like Jason Richardson
Okay.
and this guy who played high school ball in Kalamazoo named Doug Anderson. People can look him up and winning the dunk contest a few years ago. And I mean, like it's a next level thing, and it's fun to watch and transition and alley oops and all sorts of stuff. So he's fun to watch as a player. He had 5 blocks in the first game. He's like a 6'5" wing. So I think he's sort of the most intriguing, entertaining guy to watch. Jeremy Fears is their point guard who makes it go. Jeremiah Fears, his younger brother, was a first round pick in the NBA draft, and Jeremy Fears was looked like a really promising prospect 2 years ago. Was having a decent freshman year and got shot over Christmas break and had major surgery and has sort of worked his way back from that. This is the first full off season he's had in terms of getting his quickness and bounce back, and looks like he's more there than he was a year ago, and everything goes through him. Jackson Kohler is kind of a physical, skilled big man who I think can stretch the floor and can rebound, and so those are their three top returning guys that sort of pay attention to. But they've got some transfers, and Kurt Tang and who's an athletic two guard. They've got a freshman, a sophomore at that position, and sorry, Kurt Tang is the sophomore. Sorry, Trey Fort is the transfer. Mix those two guys up. Those are the two guys competing at the two guard spot, and so that's sort of a competition to watch and two guys to watch who can shoot it. A nice freshman in Cam Ward, not the Cam Ward playing for the Titans, but who I think will stand out. But really, it's those three guys, Kohler, Fears, and Carr, that are this season's going to weigh, going to depend heavily on.
I know in this, era of college basketball, the transfer portal is key. I know you mentioned a few transfers. Is there a guy on that list that's kind of the X factor to this year's team that you throw him in with that group of returners and they're kind of thinking that he's the guy that could take them to the next level?
Well, they've got the guy really is. They had one guy get hurt who's out for the year, but
Okay.
Trey Ford is in a sixth school. If I got that right. He's been around, although he does have a degree, and two of them were JUCOs, and he's really he's got some bounce. He's got some ability. He was at Samford last year. Spent a year at Mississippi State. He's been a lot of places, right? And I think it's fifth school, 6th year. Maybe I have that right. Whatever. It's a lot. But he's got some skill. He's got some talent. He's playing up. He really wants to prove he can do it at this level. He can take you on at the rim. He's a good player, and he can shoot, and he can do a lot of things. So that's the guy they need. Him and Kurt Tang, who's this sophomore who a real pure shot. They need one of those two guys to, or maybe both of them, but they need those guys at the two guard spot to emerge.
I'm curious, and I know it's really hard to judge just coming off of an exhibition game where you're throwing out random lineups and things like that. But what did Bowling Green in particular do that they were able to stick around with this Michigan State team? Because really, deep in the second half was a pretty tight game still.
Yeah, I mean, Bowling Green did that last year. They were tough. Bowling Green's really well coached. If you play him early, Todd Simon, their coach, is actually from this area. A really talented guy and they've got, you know, they've got some players, 11 new players, like most mid majors do. But they've got some guys and they were fearless and skilled and took advantage of some youth and some inexperience in Michigan State. And just MSU's defense, and Bowling Green made shots, but they also, attacked MSU's defense inside, rebounded well. MSU did not do that well, and that was, MSU's rebounding outside of Jackson Kohler and their interior defense, which actually starts at the perimeter, was concerning. Because the thing about Izzo is his whole Hall of Fame career is made on this sort of gap help defense, right? That's what he's great at, and that requires a lot of trust. And there's you look like a new team guarding in a system that maybe that's not been built up yet.
Yeah, no, I think it's going to make for an interesting matchup. And from a rebounding perspective from the UConn side, I'm sure they would have really liked Terrace Reed in this one. Doesn't look like he'll be playing. And I know a guy that probably has some familiarity with going up against
Yeah,
Michigan
sure.
State.
Yeah, Michigan State knows him well.
Y-
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Graham, I really appreciate it. I know it's just a preseason game here, but fun to still dive into the matchup a little bit, talk a little hoops. I know these UConn Michigan State games in the past have always been good ones, so expecting nothing less than this one.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to making the trip. I know, MSU fans are, they're intrigued. They're ready for hoops. Football has
Yeah.
been a mess, so they're ready for this for sure.
Yeah. Well, Graham, I appreciate it. Safe travels out here and enjoy the game.
Sounds great. Take care.